As a labor leader, I was, I am, and I will continue to oppose the big and beautiful bill signed into law by President Donald Trump. I strongly believe the big and beautiful bill is there to hurt and destroy working class Americans. Negatively impacting the fabrics of our immigration system and increase our national debt by 3.4 trillion. I repeat, increase the national debt by 3.4 trillion. That's right. Our members are seeing their paycheck cuts, their families separated, and they placing people in a private jail and private prisons, thanks to the big and beautiful bill, to make sure that billionaires still make money and us, working class Americans, struggling. As I'm standing in front of you here, President of UFCW Local 431, we have lost 600 plus members because their legal status was revoked. Our members are seeing their paycheck, as I say, cut. The bill will negatively impact healthcare workers through changes to Medicare and the insurance in the marketplaces. These changes include cuts on Medicare fundings, work requirements for beneficiaries, and potential reduction in coverage, which could lead to increase of incapacitated care for hospital and potentially affect staffing levels. The changes also reduce access to care for low-income individuals. They will further hurt rural hospitals that serve many of our citizens. We cannot wake up in a country full of uncertainty, and today you can see it. It's tough to hire and staff a nursing home or senior home care in some facility. In fact, you will see one CNA for 40 patients. That's not acceptable. We wake up every day in our community full of uncertainty. Our immigrant members wake up every day fearing for their families and themselves because of ICE. Even children born in America every day who are U.S. citizens of an immigrant's parents, today they fear for their life. We vote in Congress for a reason, we vote in senators for a reason. We all agree that we need to fix our immigration, but we're not going to fix it with an executive order. Let our senators and Congress do the work. Dear brothers and sisters, we have work to do. We need to stand firm and strong in the upcoming elections. Don't go by yourself. Make sure everybody register to vote. Friends, families, anyone that you know, make sure we all register to vote. That's the only way we can make a change. We need to take back the House and the Senate. We have to take it back. And I know how we can do it. Let's be more vocal. In the words of Martin Luther King, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matters. We are not quitters. We are fighters. We don't quit. We are go-getters. We have to organize and stand with candidates who works with and support working class Americans. Now that we're all here, we need to understand Not billionaires can change the world. They look for themselves. We the people, as our constitution say, we can change it. It's now time for all of us to stand strong. Get out and vote from the primary to the general election that's coming up. We have to vote. We have to vote. We can't sit and complain. We can't sit and not take an action. We have to take an action. We are the one that funded this country, and let's get it back. With that, I would introduce you Jana Eichen-Fraze. She's a mom with kids that depends on Medicaid. Thank you, guys.
As Simply said, my name is Jana Higgins-Freeze, and I grew up in West Davenport on Locust Street between the fairgrounds and the high school. And when they told me that I was going to follow Riley and Simply's, I had to laugh because, of course, I'm scribbling last-minute notes on my script with my Iowa, Illinois gas and electric pencil, which some of you will remember, which still has an IBEW Local 109 clip on it, which was my dad's local for 42 years. An injury to one is an injury to all. I had my babies in Iowa City, and they were both sick from the instant they were born. When Senator Joni Ernst was voting for the big, brutal bill to take working people's money away from Medicaid and Social Security to give handouts to the rich, someone shouted to her that gutting Medicaid would kill people, and she said, so I went to Senator Ernst's office with a lot of other Iowans who care about people with disabilities and immigrants and older people. And I asked her and her staff to tell me to my face that she was going to take working people's money from Medicaid and give it to the rich. And they would only talk to a few of us. I did not get to see her. So I say to her now, Senator Ernst, like many of the 700,000 people who are on Medicaid in Iowa, I've spent a lot of time not knowing if my kids who are now on Medicaid were going to be alive in a few hours. After I gave birth in Iowa City, I laid there while the room was silent and the doctors and nurses were scared, waiting to see whether my kid could be resuscitated. Senator Ernst, I don't need you to tell me that we're all going to die. I need you to stop stealing the money that helps my kids have a good life. To Representative Mariannette Miller-Meeks, a doctor, I say, you took an oath as a physician to first do no harm. I learned a lot about what it means to take a vow every week at St. Mark Lutheran Church. And I tell you now, your vote for the big brutal bill has harmed my family. It already keeps me awake at night trying to figure out how we and 700,000 other Iowans can live without Medicaid. And it will really harm me and my family when the cuts kick in after the elections because they're complete cowards. I've been working with the Fighting Oligarchy Project over the last few months to let our neighbors know what this bill will do to our state. We've done a lot of work, but I can tell you there's still a lot of misinformation out there. So tonight we're asking for your help. We have packets of flyers out in the lobby that we're going to hand out at the end of the event. And if each of us takes a packet and hands them out to the people in our lives, we can reach tens of thousands of Iowans, so that they can understand what Senator Ernst and Representative Mariannette Miller-Meeks did to us in Iowa. So as you're leaving, watch for that and take a packet, or two. But back to Medicaid. And by the way, a lot of Iowans who are on Medicaid don't know that they're on Medicaid. Iowa has already privatized Medicaid to make sure that private companies get to make a profit from the taxes that we all paid to help take care of each other. That is. Those companies are called Molina and Iowa Total Care and WellPoint. So when you talk to people and they say, I'm not on Medicaid, I'm on Molina, we need to tell them that's Medicaid. Medicaid pays for health insurance and health care. Medicaid pays for prescriptions. Medicaid also pays for respite care. The state agrees that one of my kids needs 17 to 24 hours of care a day. And for the first 9 years of his life, my family, including our neighbors, we did that all on our own. Then, after about 3 or 4 years on the waiting list, because Iowa has years-long waiting lists, we started using respite through Medicaid when he was 9. The respite workers bring him to the River Bandits game with Nana and Grandpa, or they take him out to listen to live music on the Ped Mall in downtown Iowa City, or they go visit his friend Ada in Cedar Falls. And Ada's also on Medicaid. She's nonverbal and she has seizures every day. Respite gives us a chance to pay attention to our other kid, or read a book, or play a video game, without giving food or meds every 2 to 3 hours and being constantly on call for his needs. Since I arrived here this evening, his anxiety is really spiking, and he's texted me 47 times. Medicaid lets him and us have dignity and independence while we're all still living together and taking care of each other. Medicaid pays for group homes, too, and Kiddo will be moving to a group home one of these days because that would fit his needs better. Already, there's an 8-year waiting list in Iowa for the Medicaid waiver that pays for these group homes. My son's only on that waiver because last Christmas he got so sick that he qualified for an emergency spot. And I'm very glad that he got that spot, but I also feel sick because it means that some other family is now waiting longer for their spot to come up on the waiver. That's a choice that Iowa makes, to have there be a waiting list, and it doesn't have to be like that. And that's before the cuts that Senator Ernst and Representative Miller-Meeks voted for. To pay for a group home besides Medicaid, you need Social Security and SNAP too. When Secretary of Labor Frances Perkins invented Social Security, she said, "This is how we make the world a little bit more like the city of God." But the Republicans have been gutting the staff at Social Security, and 60,000 people a year die waiting for the Social Security benefits that they have earned to kick in. So, I guess the Republicans have made the world a little less like the city of God. My kiddo needs Social Security to help pay rent and utilities and groceries when he moves to his group home. Already it took 10 months for my kiddo's benefits to be approved when he turned 18 because Social Security is so short-staffed. So I'm grateful to Senator Sanders for telling the truth. Working people, right? Working people need the rich to stop stealing our money. There's enough for everything for everyone, as long as we don't let the rich steal more than half of it off the top. Thank you very much. And now, please welcome Misty Rebick, Bernie's Iowa State Director from 2020.
Hello, Davenport. Give it up again for our amazing program speakers. I'm Misty, and I work for Senator Sanders. I was born and raised right here in Iowa. I grew up in rural Tama County, and I've lived here my whole life until 2020. My mom was a meatpacking worker, and my dad's a truck driver, so I'm Iowa through and through. And I got to know Senator Sanders pretty well over the last 6.5 years. I was pleased to be his Iowa State campaign manager back in 2020. Thank you. And during that time, we did more than 100 events in the state of Iowa. We crisscrossed and went to every corner across this state. Sometimes we would go to towns so small where we had more people in the town hall than the actual population of the town we were in. And you know, because you're here, we ended up winning the Iowa caucus by 2,500 votes. In those town halls, we heard from people from all walks of life, farmers, nurses, teachers, moms, people who are on the stage tonight. And even with people who didn't always agree with us. But the people of Iowa have always welcomed Senator Sanders since way back in 2016. And we have appreciated the support, and that's why we keep coming back, because we love Iowa. And I live in D.C. now, and I have to tell you I'm very homesick, so it's amazing to be here tonight with you guys. And we're going to get right into it. So tonight we're going to do things a little different. We're going to do an old school style town hall. So we're going to hear from Senator Sanders. We're going to have some mics. Myself and my colleague Evan are going to have a mic, and we're going to engage. We're going to have a conversation and discussion about the things that matter most to you. So are you guys ready for that? With that, please help me welcome to the stage Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Davenport. This is quite a turnout. Thank you all very much for being here. And let me thank the Rat Boys, Joanna and Simplice and Riley and Misty for their remarks. Let me tell you, Misty Reberg is a hard taskmaster. I did more town meetings here in Iowa in 2020 than in any state in the country. And other than Vermont, I have not been in a place where I've met so many people. And I want to thank the people of Iowa because we did large meetings like this. We did small meetings with 50, 100 people, and people were willing to open up about the pain they're experiencing and their dreams for the future. And that meant a whole lot to me. I learned a lot, and I just want to thank the people of Iowa for that experience. What I want to do tonight is talk for a little bit about some of the issues that you're not going to see in corporate media or talked about in the U.S. House or the U.S. Senate. And then what we'll do is you'll ask me questions and I'll ask you questions, and we'll do what this country is supposed to be about: experience democracy. All right, let me start off by telling you why we have framed the tours that have taken us all over this country called Fighting Oligarchy. Now, what we don't talk about as a nation very much is who has the wealth and who has the power. Don't talk about that very much. The reality is that right now in our great country, we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of the United States of America. You have, if you can believe it, and one of the things that I want you to be thinking about, ask me about, I'll ask you about. You know, if some kid robs a 7-Eleven, everyone says, that's terrible, gets a gun, put him in jail, fine, it's a crime. But sometimes when you're talking about billionaires and corporate executives doing far more serious criminal activity, we don't get outraged about that. So here's a fact. It's a fact I doubt you've ever seen on TV or heard certainly members of the Iowa delegation in Washington talk about. That is, in America today, if you can believe it, and it is true, one person, his name is Elon Musk, one person owns more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households. All right, let me stop right there. One person, more wealth than the bottom 52% of households. Does that vaguely make sense to any person in this room? Thanks for the reinforcement. And then you have the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 93%. You have CEOs, and there was a new study coming out recently, but I'll give you the conservative numbers. CEOs of large corporations make 350 times what their workers make. This is not what America is supposed to be about. There always have been rich and always have been poor, and I don't know when that's ever going to change. But not that grotesque level of inequality. And then, while the wealthiest people in America have never ever had it so good, there is another reality that I experience many of the people in this room are experiencing. And again, you are living in the richest country in the history of the world. And yet, despite that reality, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck, so I know a little bit about that, and I expect some of you are in that situation today, correct? All right. So this is an issue that we have got to talk about. So what does living paycheck to paycheck mean? What it means, for a start, is you are simply not earning enough to take care of your basic needs. So if you're not making enough and your husband or your wife or your kids get sick, you got a problem. If you're not earning enough and your landlord raises your rents, which is going on, by the way, all over America, what do? How do you find an affordable apartment? Very hard in many parts of this country. And maybe, just maybe, if you're a working class person, you would like to retire with dignity and security. And yet half of older workers in America today have zero in the bank as they face retirement. And here's a statistic that I'm going to bore you tonight with some statistics, but I should tell you because other people are not going to tell you these things. But you got, among elderly people in America, 22% of our seniors are trying to survive on $15,000 a year or less. Think about it. $15,000 a year. No one can survive on that, let alone a senior that has health care needs, etc., etc. Bottom line is, we are the richest country on earth. There is no rational reason why we are not providing a decent standard of living for every man, woman, and child. Now, our friends in the oligarchy, and many of you may remember that when Trump was inaugurated, standing right behind him were the three wealthiest people in America. And I had kind of the misfortune, I got pushed up front. I'm not quite sure why that happened, because nobody else wanted to do it. Bernie, you go up to the front row there. So I was closer to Trump getting inaugurated than you are to me. And right behind him was Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg, three wealthiest guys in America. But that's not enough. Behind them, you had 13 other billionaires who Trump had nominated to head major government agencies. And when I was there, it was a painful experience. When I was there listening to his speech, I really was thinking a little bit about American history. And I was thinking about Lincoln at Gettysburg. You all remember that when Lincoln was at Gettysburg, a few days after that terrible, terrible battle, where God knows how many thousands of soldiers died in order to try to end slavery in this country, Lincoln gets up there a few days, looks out in the battlefield, and he says, you know, these people, these soldiers have not died in vain. Because, in so many words, our vision of America, said Lincoln, is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. That was Lincoln in 1863. And I'm sitting there with Trump in 2025 saying, essentially, we've got a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, for the billionaire class. So what Trumpism is about is not complicated. I wish I did not have to tell you this, but I think you already know this. The President of the United States is a demagogue. And demagogues historically and throughout the world, he's not the only one. They want two things. Number one is wealth for themselves and their friends, which is what Trump is delivering. And the other thing they want is more and more power for themselves. Now, I would hope that when we recall how many brave men and women from Iowa, from Vermont, from every state in this country put their lives on the line to defend American democracy, that I would hope that no matter what your political view is, you disagree with me, fine. That's called democracy. But what we have seen since Trump was elected is something unprecedented in American history. And that is, you have a president who is usurping powers from the Congress. He is, in too many instances, ignoring decisions of courts. He is going after the media with lawsuits and in other ways like we have never seen before, because this president, this great big bully, is afraid of people criticizing him. So, Mr. President, if you are afraid of criticism, get the hell out of politics. He is going after law firms because they had clients who opposed him. He is going after universities because they teach courses that he doesn't like. And right now, all across this country, including Iowa, we have ICE agents, sometimes with masks around their faces, throwing people into vans and taking them illegally, unconstitutionally to detention centers. And now you have military transportation tanks, etc., in our nation's capital. And understand what all of this is about. We can argue about a sane immigration policy. Honest people have different points of view. We can argue how you effectively deal with crime problems which are too high in many parts of the country. But this is not about immigration policy. This is not about dealing with crime. This is about a president who is showing the American people that he is prepared to utilize power and move against people who dissent and disagree with him. That's what this is about. Now, you may not have heard much about this from your representatives here in Iowa. But a month ago or so, July 4th, I think it was, more than a month, Trump signed what I believe to be the most dangerous piece of legislation ever passed in the modern history of this country. Trump's big, beautiful bill was anything but beautiful. What that legislation did was provide, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when the rich never had it so good, he gave them $1 trillion in tax breaks. He gave, if you can believe it, the top 0.2% over $200 billion in tax breaks. He gave large, profitable corporations $900 billion in tax breaks. And that is pretty disgusting. But you know what is even worse is how he paid for it. Iowa, Vermont, and America are facing an enormous crisis in healthcare. We got 85 million Americans today who are uninsured or underinsured. Obviously, what our job has got to do is to do what every other major country on earth does, and that is to guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child. All right? That is what you want. That is what I want. That is what the people of Vermont want. That is what people all over this country want. But you know what Trump did? He said, well, we got 85 million uninsured or underinsured. Let's see how we can make a horrible situation even worse. Let us make $1 trillion cut in Medicaid and cuts in the Affordable Care Act that will throw, if you can believe it, 15 million Americans off of the health care they currently have. So instead of providing coverage to more people, what we are doing is throwing 15 million people off. And let me be very frank, I'm not happy to have to tell you this, but it will not surprise you. When you throw 15 million people off of the health care that they have, and these are people who are low-income people, these are working-class people, that means that people will not be able to go to a doctor when they should be going. And the result of that, according to various studies that have been done, is that tens of thousands of Americans will die unnecessarily because of that legislation. That is how horrific, how unacceptable is that. And I have talked to doctors, Mont and all over this country, and they tell me right now that patients walk in much sicker than they should be. And the doctor asked the obvious question, why didn't you come in when you first had your symptoms several months ago? And the answer is, you know what the answer is. Well, I don't have any health insurance, or I can't afford the deductible, or I can't afford the copayment, I just couldn't come in. And some of those people don't make it, because by the time they get into a doctor's office, their symptoms have gotten worse. That is what this legislation is about. Tax breaks for billionaires, cutting health care, and by the way, in the state of Iowa, your fairly small state, 95,000 people are going to lose their health insurance that they have. It is throwing kids off of nutrition programs. Now, in the richest country on earth, no child, no individual should have to struggle to feed himself or herself. Unfortunately, that is not the case. But as a result of this bill, millions of people are going to lose the nutrition benefits that they had. As a result of this bill and the need to give tax breaks to billionaires, it is going to be harder for our young people to afford to go to college, not to mention many other disastrous provisions. That is the legislation that Trump gave to the American people. And in my view, no member of the House, no member of the Senate who voted for that legislation should be reelected. But oligarchy, my friends, is not just economic power. It's not just the kleptocracy that Trump is showing us, making his family wealthier because of his presidency. It goes beyond that. And that is, right now in America, and again, I don't care if you're a conservative or a progressive, I would hope that we can all agree that the current campaign finance system is corrupt. And what that means is that as a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, we now have a situation, and not a whole lot of people are aware of this. You know, you have an election, people are running for office, but if you are a billionaire, what you can do is set up a super PAC, and you can spend as much as you want in that super PAC to support the candidate you like or defeat the candidate you don't like. So just a few examples of how obscene this corrupt campaign finance system is. Elon Musk himself decided he wanted Trump to win. He decides to spend $270 million to elect Trump. $270 million. And of course, when you put that much money into somebody, you get your payback. His payback was the right to become the most powerful person in government for a number of months. And he was able to exercise his extreme right-wing ideology, and that is to fire some 7,000 employees at the Social Security Administration, to threaten to lay off over 80,000 employees at the Veterans Administration, to break the federal unions so that workers there lost their union representation, and to lay off tens of thousands of federal employees. But what a corrupt campaign finance system is about is not only allowing billionaires to intervene in an election, It goes further than that. It goes right down to legislation. Let me give you a couple of examples. In this terrible piece of legislation, reconciliation bill that I just mentioned, if you think that senators and House members, Republicans, Democrats, did not understand the implications of that bill, you would be mistaken. So you had this guy named Tom Tillis. I don't know if that name means anything. Tillis is a U.S. Senator from North Carolina, and Tom and I have very little. He's a conservative guy. We have very little in common. But Tillis made the mistake of actually reading the legislation. And he read the legislation, and he discovered that hundreds of thousands of people in his home state of North Carolina were going to lose health insurance. And he said, you know what? I can't vote for that bill. Literally, hours after he made that statement, Trump was on social media ripping him apart, and the billionaires were announcing that they were going to fund a candidate to run against them in the Republican primary. And very shortly after that, Tillis said, I am out of here. I'm not running for re-election. What's my point? My point is, right now in the Republican Party, and it is true in the Democratic Party as well, not quite as much, true in both parties. Right now, if you are in the Republican Party and you have the courage to represent your constituents and stand up to Trump, you will be put under enormous political pressure and likely defeated in the next election. But it is not just the Republican Party. 80 billionaires contributed to Kamala Harris's campaign as well. And I will give you one example of where I believe that money has had a very negative impact. In my opinion, what is going on in Gaza right now is absolutely unconscionable and immoral. Over 60,000 people in an area of 2.2 million people, not a very large population. Over 60,000 have been killed, over 140,000 have been wounded. Some 18,000 children have been killed. Thousands of kids have had to have one or more limb amputated. Their entire infrastructure has been demolished, their water systems, their wastewater plants, their schools, their universities, their healthcare system. That's what is going on in Gaza. Now, that's really bad. But what is even worse from an American perspective is we are funding that terrible Netanyahu war. Now, what I am telling you about what's going on in Gaza, members of Congress know. They read the same stuff as I read and as you read. So I'm happy to tell you, by the way, that we're beginning to make some progress. We now have a pretty strong majority of Democrats who are prepared to vote against more military aid to Israel. We have had 0 Republicans. Not one Republican. I brought up the legislation, not very complicated, stop weapons system going to Israel. Now, last time I got 27 votes, more than we've ever gotten before. No Republicans. Now, why is that? Has everything to do with super PACs like AIPAC that say to these members of Congress, you vote for that Sanders resolution, you are out of here, we're going to spend millions to defeat you. What we have got to do, and it's true in both parties, if we believe in democracy, what that is about is one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. And we're making some progress there as well. The Democratic National Committee, I think in a few weeks or shorter, is going to vote on a proposal to get super PAC money out of Democratic presidential primaries. And I want to see that expanded. If you're running for Congress, you should not have crypto money or AIPAC money being spent by the tens of millions of dollars to defeat that. All right, it is one thing to work diligently, and we have to every single day, taking on Trump's dangerous agenda. But that is not good enough. What we also have to bring forth is a new vision for where our country should be going. All right? And too many Democrats are saying, well, I disagree with Trump, vote Trump out, vote anybody, and that's fine. But we need, the American people are hurting. The American people understand something fairly profound, is that the current economic and political systems are broken for the working class of this country. They are broken. Over the last 50 years, 50 years, real inflation accounted for wages for workers, despite huge increases in worker productivity, have actually declined. Got that? Over a 50-year period, we've seen all kinds of new technology. Every worker in this room is producing a lot more than somebody who did a similar job 50 years ago. And yet real weekly inflation accounted for wages are lower today than they were 50 years ago. People understand that. They understand that over the last 50 years, there's been a 75 trillion with a T transfer of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. Working class people understand that, and they're saying, we are struggling. Who in Washington is listening to us? Who the hell knows what's going on in our lives? Well, so we need to bring forth together an agenda that speaks to the needs of families like the family I grew up with and the family that you are today. Agenda that works for the working class, not the 1%. So let me just lay out a few items on that agenda, and then we're going to open it up. Number one, as I said a moment ago, health care is a human right. We should be ashamed that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care for all. We must pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. Now, this system, and I want to discuss it, you can ask me questions about it, this is how broken this system is. We could understand that 85 million are uninsured or underinsured, that our life expectancy is shorter than other wealthy countries. We can understand all that if we weren't spending twice as much per capita as almost any other country on earth. You got it? In other words, we are spending over $14,000 per person on health care in the United States of America. $14,000. $56,000 for a family of four, and yet you got a broken healthcare system. And the reason for that is not hard to understand. The function of a rational healthcare system is to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way. The function of the American healthcare system, and it is doing this, is to make huge profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies. So our job, and again, we certainly, if every other country, major country on earth can do it, we can do it. And I want to talk a little bit more, because I remember coming here to Iowa and talking to people, hearing stories, hearing a guy talk. Now, it was a woman talking about her husband being ill and not even telling her that he was ill because he didn't want to worry about the financial costs. Talking to people who went bankrupt because they underwent cancer treatment. In America today, it's not just that we are living 4 years shorter lives than other wealthy countries. That is bad enough. But here's a statistic that should blow everybody away. And that is, if you are working class in America, you will live 7 years shorter lives than the 1%. Why is that? Why is it that the people on top live 7 years longer lives than working class people? All right, raise your hand. Give me some answers here. Stress. I hear the word stress. All right, who wants to tell me? Tell me about. All right, let me back it up here and tell you. I did a hearing a number of years ago. Never forget it. We had a number of doctors talking about the physiology of poverty. Physiology of poverty. What does that mean? What does it mean? All right, raise your hand. Somebody, come on, give me an answer here. What does that mean? Your gentleman right here. Stand up, be loud. You got a mic coming. You got a mic?
Now, this is the first time I've heard this term, but breaking it down, how your finances impact your health directly?
Right.
Okay, cool.
That's it. I mean, look, just think for a moment. This is not complicated. If you are worried, as millions of Americans are, as to how you're going to feed your kids for the week, how you're going to pay the rents, how you're going to go to the doctor when you get sick, that takes a toll on your mind and on your body, right? You're worried all of the time. That's stress. And as everybody in this room knows, stress kills. That's what it impacts. I'm not a doctor here, but it impacts various organs, your heart and everything else. That's what these doctors were telling us. And that is the reality for many, many millions of people in our country today. And I want you just to think, and again, the point that I'm going to make to you over and over again is, if we were a poor country, we were Haiti, some poor country, we'd say, gee, it would be nice that everybody could have health care. We are not a poor country. You are the richest country in the history of the world. There is no rational reason why we do not have the best healthcare system in the world rather than one of the worst. And when you think about a system that is broken, you think about, does the system provide for basic necessities of life? Everybody here wants to do well, all right? But most importantly, we want to make sure that the basic needs are taken care of, that we can feed our kids decent quality food, which is very expensive right now, correct? All right. That when we get sick, we can go to the doctor without worrying about whether we can afford it or not, or if we end up in the hospital worrying about whether we go bankrupt, all right? But it's not just health care. It is education as well. The United States used to have the best education, used to be the best educated country on earth. We had the best schools. A higher percentage of our kids went to college than any other country on earth. 50, 60 years ago, I don't know about Iowa, but I do know about New York and Vermont, you could go to excellent public colleges. My brother went to Brooklyn College in Brooklyn, 60, 70 years ago. Do you know what tuition was then? 0. You're saying, wow, this was 60 years ago. Great universities, City University of New York, University of California, tuition free. State colleges in Vermont, tuition free. And I suspect that was the case in states all over America. So how the hell do we go from providing free tuition in state colleges all over America 60 years ago, with all of the advances, to a situation where kids are going deeply in debt if they want a higher education? So we are living, as everybody here knows, in a highly competitive global economy. It is not a radical demand to say that we should be making public colleges and universities tuition free. That is not a radical idea. Psychologists tell us that the most important years of human development are 0 through 4, right? That's when kids develop emotionally and intellectually. And yet we have a dysfunctional and broken child care system in this country. For any of you who have little kids, you know how expensive. I don't know what it is here in Iowa or in Davenport, but in Vermont, $20,000, $25,000 a year. So if your family, more than that? That's right. All right. And meanwhile, our child care workers, teachers, are paid horrific salaries. It is not too much. You know, I hear the politicians around me in Washington, oh, we love America. Well, if you love America, you love the children of America. You love the teachers of America and pay them a living salary. So in the richest country in the world, you got a healthcare system broken. You got an education system in real deep trouble. And then a housing situation where today, again, in the richest country on earth, 800,000 Americans are homeless and 20 million households are spending 50% or more of their limited income for housing. Instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires, how about building 4 or 5 million units of low-income and affordable housing? In Iowa, the minimum wage is the federal minimum wage, as I understand it, $7.25 an hour, right? Anybody think that anyone in this world can live on $7.25 an hour? Got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $17 an hour. We need to pass legislation making it easier for workers to join unions. Millions of workers want to join unions, but illegally are prevented from doing so because of the actions of their employers. That's got to change. We need to end the absurdity of being one of 2 countries on earth that doesn't guarantee paid family and medical leave. I got some of my colleagues, Republicans, think it's a brilliant idea to cut Social Security. Well, I disagree. I think we should expand Social Security benefits. And you do that by lifting the cap on taxable income so the wealthy can start paying their fair share into the system. All right, let me just conclude, and then we're going to open up for your questions and comments. These are very difficult times for the country, no question about it. We're dealing with one crisis after another crisis. But I would remind everybody that this is not the first moment in American history that we have had to deal with very, very serious situations. I would remind all of you, that 60, 70 years ago, black kids could not go to integrated schools in parts of this country. And people like Dr. King and others organized strong grassroots movement to end segregation and end discrimination in voting rights. I would remind everyone in this room, in a battle that we're still waging, that women 100 years ago were not second-class citizens, they were third-class citizens. But women organized, went to jail, went on hunger strikes, and said, you know what? We are not going to accept that status quo. We want our full rights. They stood up and they fought. We've made real progress in women's rights. We have made real progress in terms of fighting for gay rights. The understanding that people, regardless of their sexual orientation, have a right to love whomever they want. But where we have not made progress is in the economic struggle. In fact, we have lost ground in that struggle. So my request of all of you is do not let Trump and his friends divide us up, because that's what demagogues do. They divide us up. They have scapegoats, undocumented, trans people, whoever it may be. We got to stand together, whether we're black or white or Latino, Asian, gay, straight, whatever we are. Let's stand together and create the America you know and I know we can create. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Missy, where do we are? You got a mic here and a mic there. All right, who has a question or a comment? All right, see your hand right there, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for coming out and being here with us. I know you're an independent. I am a lifelong Democrat, a proud Democrat, but like millions of others around the country, I'm really fed up with Democratic leadership, particularly in the Senate. I don't want to hear Chuck Schumer talk about sending another strongly worded letter, right? If we learned anything during the Obama years, it was that Republicans knew how to obstruct. I want us to obstruct. I want to see us using every parliamentarian maneuver, anything we can, obstruct, obstruct, obstruct. And the people of this country, we have been paying attention and we have been out in the streets. I'm a member of Indivisible. We've been doing hands off, no kings. We've showed up in the millions. We need our elected leaders to show up for us. And that means sitting in at the Capitol, having alternate hearings, profiling a person who's dying because their Medicaid has been stripped away.
Good.
We need action, and we need a new playbook, because our leaders are using a playbook for a political system that no longer exists.
Thank you, and I agree with everything that you've said, but let me add to that. All right, let me add to that. You may or may not agree with me, but we need the Democratic Party to understand that it cannot receive massive amounts of campaign contributions from the wealthy and represent the working class of this country. And there is a reason why a lot of people have turned their backs, working class people, and that is because the Democrats, to a large degree, have turned their backs on them. All right? So we need a vision. And it's not a radical vision. All the things that I talked about, health care and education and Social Security, they are wildly popular. They're supported by Republicans, by independents, by Democrats. Do you think the people of this country want to give billions more to Netanyahu to starve children? They don't. All right? But the Democrats have finally got to recognize you can't take money from billionaires and then serve the needs of the working class in this country. And by the way, I mean, the reason I am here in the Midwest is tomorrow or the next day we'll be in Michigan supporting a strong candidate for the U.S. Senate. We'll be in Illinois supporting 2 strong candidates for the House of Representatives. Rural Wisconsin, a strong candidate for the House of Representatives. We need strong, progressive candidates prepared to stand up for working class people. Mister, you got a question back there? Take them one side or the other. See a woman, okay?
Hi, my name is Cade. I am 15. I am 15 years old, and I have a question. So, what is your guys' plans on supporting the LGBTQ plus youth, especially the trans youth?
Well, my view is very, very simple. See, what demagogues do is play one group off another. That's what they do. And my view is very simple, that we end all forms of bigotry in this country for everybody, period.
Thank you. So I'm a licensed mental health therapist, and I'm in independent practice. About almost half of my caseload is Medicaid patients. So I am quite concerned not just what is going to happen to my patients when they lose their Medicaid coverage. And these people are working. The ones that aren't working are usually people who are not getting disability benefits, even though they've applied over and over. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. So I'm concerned not just about what's going to happen to my patients, but how am I going to be a small business owner when I can't afford to provide that many pro bono services? So any comments? Thank you.
Okay. Look, these cuts to health care are going to be devastating in many, many ways, all right, to small business people. But I'll tell you, I didn't mention it. And maybe somebody wants to comment on this because it's an issue we've been looking at, and that is the nursing home crisis in America. And maybe somebody, I was just in Burlington on Sunday, we had a meeting, and some guy got up, and I'll never forget this, and he says, I talked to somebody who was very dear to me who was in a nursing home, and the care was so horrible that she said, you have to kill me before I will go back to a nursing home. I mean, and what you see is nursing homes all over this country are understaffed right now. I don't know, again, the story here in Iowa, it may be different. I doubt that it is, all right? And nursing homes get a substantial amount of their revenue from Medicaid. So a bad situation will be made even worse. I have worked very hard with some success, to get many billions of dollars more into community health centers around the country. But community health centers, by definition, treat low-income and working-class people, including people who have no insurance, and many of whom are on Medicaid or Medicare. These cuts are going to impact community health centers as well. So this big, beautiful bill will be a total disaster for the whole healthcare systems, not to mention putting in danger some of your rural hospitals as well. Okay, we got a question over there.
Senator, I'd like to ask you about your opinion with unemployment, the rate that it's at. Many people are underemployed. And for anyone who doesn't know, those benefits are about 47% of whatever your weekly benefit is. And with all of the government politicizing and the grabbing funds, my question to you is, what do you think the chances are that in states that do stand up, that they'll lose their federal funding for unemployment?
Well, you raise an interesting issue in that, generally speaking, I mean, I think it is a truism that in the past many years, no matter who the president was, whether it was Biden, whether it was Bush, Obama, whatever, presidents look at the whole country as their country. They don't say this is a Republican state, oh, and this is a Democratic state. So I worry very much that you now have a president who's going to pick and choose who's going to get the federal support. First time in history that a president looks at these things from a political point of view. I'll give you an example. In this big, beautiful, terrible bill, which will make life very difficult for rural hospitals, the Republicans felt obliged to come up with a fund to help rural hospitals that might be in trouble. It's not enough. It doesn't go anywhere near the damage. Half of that fund will be controlled by the White House. Do I think that they will make sure that states in blue states will get their fair share? I have my doubts. So, all right. Let me ask, I want to ask you a question now. There was an interesting poll that came out a couple of years ago by the Pew Research Center, and they are well respected. And I want you to think about this. They asked the American people, they said, okay, tell me, are you better off today than somebody like you was 50 years ago? Got it? All right. The question is, are you better off than somebody who was like you? You're middle class, working class, whatever you may be. Somebody like you 50 years ago. Were they better off then, or are you better off now? All right, Mike, raise your hand if you think we are better off today than was the case 50 years ago. Whoa. All right. I want you to take a deep breath and think about that. Think about all of the technology that's out there, right? You got computers today, didn't have them 50 years ago. You got cell phones, didn't have them. You got these big flat screen TVs, right? You got medical treatments that are better today than they were if you had cancer and other diseases. And yet, what I'm looking at in this audience here in Davenport, that the vast majority of the people think that life in general was better 50 years ago. Why is that? Why was that the case? Give me some thoughts on that. Hold it. All right, raise your hand. Somebody raise your hand, stand up. I see somebody right here. Misty. Yeah, Mike is coming to you. Why do you think that's the case?
My kids can't afford a house. My parents, they knew their kids would go to college, would have good jobs, would be able to afford houses. I don't have that.
Okay, very good point. Very good point. I'll give you, okay? All right, what I want to get into your brains here, which you're not going to see on television, and very few people in Washington talk about it. How does it happen with all of the technology, right? All of the technological changes that we have seen. Why is the working class and middle class not doing better today than they were 50 years ago? All right. So you're talking, I'll give you an example, personal example, all right? I grew up in a family that didn't have much money. I grew up in a rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn, New York. So my father never made any money, but the rent was controlled. And I did some arithmetic, and I may be off by a little bit. But my best recollection is that my family, without any money, you know what we paid, what percentage of my dad's income we paid in rent? 18%. Anybody here paying 18% of your income in housing? No. There are people here paying 50%. And your point, how again, in God's name, in the richest country on earth, are in many cases, if we don't change it, our kids going to have a lower standard of living than we do. You're right. Young people back then were able to afford a house. Now kids are living in their parents' attics. All right. Why does that happen? Give me an answer here. All right, I see a person right here in the front.
So, hi, my name's Heaven, huge fan. I'm with Bitches Get Stuff Done. I actually have $24,000 in student debt, and because Donald Trump got rid of forbearance on student loans, my 615 credit score dropped down to 478, and now I can't afford an apartment on my own. And that's just an apartment. I'm never going to buy a house. I'm always going to have to live with a roommate. I'm probably going to die in debt. I don't even have a degree. So, bitchesgetstuffdone.org if you want to help fight the revolution. We're a fun bunch. We got arrested. Heather got assaulted on a fucking bridge.
All right. Thank you. All right, but again, I want you to be thinking about this. You know, it's not like some terrible catastrophe, you know, a huge natural disaster devastated America and we're just building out. That didn't happen. Today we are more productive than we have ever been. Why can't her kid afford a house? Why is she now struggling with student debt? Why? Give me some answers here. All right, I see your hand here.
Managers are making way too much money, and the people that are working aren't making shit.
Well, that's a good. All right. That's a good start. Let me hear more about it. Let me get some more. All right, I got some more. Yeah, where do you got, Misty? You got somebody? Yep.
Among other reasons, participation in labor unions has
Good.
dropped significantly.
Okay. That's exactly right. All right? When labor unions were strong, it benefited not only their own members. When wages went up for union members, they went up for everybody else. That's why we have to rebuild the trade union movement in America. All right, anybody else have thoughts on it? I see a gentleman right there. Stand up, sir.
Well, I remember when I'm 73, and my name's Greg Barta, but I remember when, like, the computer age and the industrial age and how it was going to benefit humankind or workers and people, but there never was a fair distribution of wealth. It's like always people never benefited from those technologies and computer age because the top was still taking all the money.
That's it exactly. That's it exactly. And by the way, I want you to, I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff out here, but I want you, Greg is your name? All right. Greg's point is absolutely right. Again, if you give somebody a computer, they're more productive than somebody without a computer. Why the hell are they making less money than somebody did before? All right? That's the point. But I got some news that I want you to think about. Right now, Trump and Musk and all of these high-tech guys are putting hundreds of billions of dollars into AI and into robotics. All right, talk to me about AI. People think it's a good idea. They're nervous about it. Who wants to say a word on AI? Say on AI. I see a hand right there.
Well, I think it's ruining this country. I think it's making students not being able to think very well. And I'm an environmentalist. It's destroying our power grid and using a bunch of power. That's pretty much it.
Well, it's even more than that. The concern is, people disagree, and I've talked to some people who know a lot about it. There is a possibility, not that I want to get people nervous. People disagree. But some people think, and I tend to agree with them, that for younger workers going into entry-level jobs, those jobs ain't going to be there because they're done by AI. All right, the point about it is, and this is a profound point, because this AI stuff and robotics is revolutionary. It is absolutely going to be transformative in our society. But to answer the point, Greg's point is, who is going to benefit from this? What we should be talking about loudly and clearly, and I've introduced legislation to do this, is that if AI and robotics are going to make workers more productive, workers have got to benefit from that. And among other things, it means we should shorten the work week to 32 hours without loss of pay. Okay, I think you got a question there? Okay, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Stephanie Steiner. I've driven about 5.5 hours to be here today. Been waiting for you, right? Thank you. So I'm, I worked 12 years as a women's health nurse. I'm now retired, and I'm actually running for Iowa's 4th Congressional District. Because of all of the reasons that you pointed out today, including AI, which They say it's going to make us more productive, but pretty sure what that's going to do is cut workers' hours, make less jobs be available, and it makes the rich richer while the rest of us get poorer. Okay? My question from back was this. Iowa has a very large independent voter population and a 2-to-1 Republican to Democrat. I'm out, I'm talking to people. I'm looking for ways to help bridge the divides because we have to stand together. Even if we don't agree point for point on the issues, this administration is determined to divide us, make us smaller and smaller, and as that happens, we lose our power. They're not just usurping Congress, they're not just usurping judiciary, they are usurping our power by separating us. So please stand together, stand with your neighbors, stand with your family, and do not stay silent.
Let me end on that note because I want to pick up on the point she made. Here is the good news. You know, I have been called a communist and everything else in the world, and on the and on the fringe. You know what? Everything that I told you tonight is what a majority of the American people believe in. That's a fact. People understand the campaign finance system is broken and corrupt. They understand the economy is making the rich richer and working class people poorer. They understand the healthcare system is broken, the housing system is broken, the educational system is broken. They understand that what goes on in America today is that a handful of oligarchs have enormous power while working people are throwing up their hands in despair. So let me conclude just on the note that that woman raised. At the end of the day, they are very powerful. I deal with these guys every day. These guys have more money than you can even dream of. You know, for Musk to put a couple of $100 million into Trump's campaign is chump change. It's like you going out for a cup of coffee. It doesn't matter to them. They own the media. They have a significant ownership of both political parties. They own the economy. These guys are very, very powerful, and they are very greedy. They are religious people, but you know what their religion is? It is greed. And they worship on the altar of money. That's who they are. They're not nice guys. But our job is not to allow them to divide us up, because you don't have to have a PhD in mathematics to know that 99% is a hell of a lot bigger number than 1%. Let's do it. Thank you all.